it is the beginning of the week. How is there been so many headlines? You had texted me something like, it's giving alternate reality, and it is so true.
People just need to take a chill and like stop judging other people for every single like little decision that they make.
And I'm like, wait, I actually agree with that, and I didn't even realize I agreed with it. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Washed Up Weekly. It is officially episode 11, and like we referenced last week, we are officially a semester's worth, technically, of episodes in because in the Vista we did 11 issues. So, yeah, our little project has become a semester long at this point, Colin.
Yeah, we were talking about how we're really happy with how consistent we've been, and also we mentioned we might take a break next week, TBD, because we need a little semester break in there. But also, yeah, I think it's been really good. We've learned a lot. Our episodes are now on Spotify as of today, as promised last week. And it's been good to just kind of roll with it and change as the weeks go by.
Yeah, I have had the most fun doing this podcast. I think that every week we kind of text each other and debrief about it, and we're like, wait, that felt really good. Like, I know we always say this, but we always say that it feels like a weight lifted off our shoulders, and truly having the final product does feel like it did with the Vista, and it feels so rewarding, even if all it is like our little passion project right now. But um, otherwise, I'm feeling very washed up recently. I think I've said this before, but I don't know why it's just extra again, and I think it just is the up and down of post-grad Gen Z life, I think. Like I've just kind of come to the conclusion that like there will be some weeks where I actually am like, wow, I really miss having the routine of college and like stuff like that because it's so much like I guess even though it was hard too, it just was better for me mentally, like stimulating because I was learning things that I wanted to learn and not that I'm not learning right now. I just sometimes feel very stuck. And I think that is also why I suggested or we suggested like maybe a possible break.
Yeah, I mean, one of our good friends, Jess Mills, we wrote about that a lot after she graduated, and she would kind of warn us because she was a year ahead of us that like post grad is really, really hard, and there's all these like different demands that you're just, a little bit shielded from when you're in college. And I'd say I mostly agree with that. Like it's not as terrifying as I thought that it would be, but there's definitely a different set of demands, and it's like you have to be so kind of self-motivated and disciplined, and to be that way like all the time isn't really realistic. You do sometimes just need to like give yourself grace, ease it a little bit. And so yeah, if we don't have an episode next week, then that is what we landed on, just so you know. But hopefully we can continue to give ourselves that grace as needed.
I think that all the people who warned me about postgrad, I will say I don't think it's as bad as they made it seem. Um, Maybe they were doing that on purpose to like make it seem so I don't know. I was expecting the absolute trenches like all the time, like a total sense loss of sense of self, like all this stuff. And there are moments of bad, but there are also really gratifying moments, and I don't think it is like the worst era of my life. Is I'll say that. Like I went into it being like I'm going to be sad every day. Like, this is going to be the worst time ever because all my friends who had previously graduated kind of prepped me with that in mind. And I honestly thank them for that because I probably went into it with really, really low expectations. And even on the medium days, I'm like, you know what? It could be worse.
I agree. And like, it's a change to work a certain set of hours every single day and to kind of have to partition that off as like this is my work life now. But you're able to do stuff, like have your own projects and still be pushing in a general direction. And even more so than college, I've found. I feel like you can have so much more freedom and more resources at your disposal to invest into the areas of your life as you choose. So I hope that anyone out there listening, maybe our USD Vista squad, if you're preparing to graduate, um, I would, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, what's your advice? What's your advice to them? What would you describe post-grad life like?
Ooh,
In like
um,
one or two sentences, like if you had to tell them.
I think do the same as what you do in journalism, like have the fear of God in you and be scrappy. But as long
Okay.
as you have those two things, which I know that they do, the ones listening from the Vista, if you have those skill sets, that'll take you really far. Yeah, I just remember getting like after graduating and that first like getting all these applications out. I'd been doing it for like a couple of months by the time we did graduate, and you feel you feel like it's never going to turn into anything. You don't even have like the framework to imagine what it would be like to have that like stable job right out of college, but it's just weird how if you open yourself up to it, like these things will come from all of the hard work that you've been doing. Like the job that I do now is very much because of the work I was doing in college. It's if I hadn't done that work in college, I would not be where I am now. So just trust that you've already done all of the hard work and that what is next for you is just waiting as a result of that work.
Yeah, totally. My advice for the people who are watching, listening, especially our little Vista squad, is I have had to think to myself, Abby, you need to touch grass in a sense of I find myself having to return to who I am at my core. Like for so long you're a student and for so long like you're looking for validation from professors or you're doing these things and you're working with kids your age like all the time. And some weeks post grad, you kind of forget that side of you. And I've kind of been referring, me and another friend of mine refer to it as like touching grass, like returning back to who I am at my core and reminding myself who I am, what I'm doing. Like, I'm, if I don't want to be doing something, then I don't have to. That's another thing about post grad is you almost forget how, like, how much free will you have. I was FaceTiming another friend and we were talking about like she was talking about her job and stuff like that and she was like and then I realized I can just quit so I did and I think that is a wonderful thing that you're able to do. You have so much free will and this is like such a gratifying time. Like I'm so thankful for this time because it is the only time in my life that I've ever had to like focus on myself and who I am at my core, and I think that you can't forget that. Don't forget to touch grass.
Yeah, I mean, I was just t texting with my twin sister today, and we're both in the same position because obviously same age. And we were talking about how that your early 20s is such a strange time because there's people who are using that free will in so many different ways. Like, so you see people your exact same age, like doing things that are so different from what you're currently doing and where you're putting your energy. Um, and you do have that tendency to compare yourself because maybe in high school you were comparing yourself, or maybe in college, you're around peers who are studying the same thing or on the same career path. And so there's someone always beside you to compare yourself to. And then as soon as you're out of college, like that's no longer. So you have to, the only person you can compare yourself to is now yourself. So it's strange, but like you said, gratifying.
Yes, I and for my Vista folks listening, you guys will do such amazing things. And
Oh yeah, for sure.
anyone who is asking you what they want or what you're going to do in your future, and you're getting the most overwhelming sense of anxiety, and you don't want to answer, just don't. You have free will too, right now. Anyways, we can move on to our good news topics. Colin, do you want
Sure.
to start with yours?
Okay, so mine is a bit of a local good news topic, but I think there's a lesson in there for everyone. This week in Washington, D.C., the cherry blossoms are blooming like at their maximum, and there's a very narrow window when all of the blossoms are kind of like peak bloom, I think they call it. So it's going to be this weekend from like Friday to early next week, and it's already starting to happen. Like you can see there's a definite change that we have all of these cherry blossoms along the Potomac River by the National Mall. it's a huge like tourist attraction, and I think we got them from Japan in like 1912 as like a gift, and ever since then, yeah, they bloom like early in the spring and then die off really quickly. But I haven't been back to DC to see it in like a decade almost, but it's really exciting, and it just gives kind of like a reminder of like spring is here, a good reminder to slow down and like observe your surroundings as things are changing. In a way, I think it grounds us to be attuned to nature and not just like on a screen all day long or like sitting inside and kind of like wasting away. So this is a good draw. It brings people out, it brings tourism, it brings like the beauty of spring. So I'm really excited about it. And even if you can't see it in person, there's still a lesson there, I think.
That sounds so pretty. Yesterday I finally felt like it was feeling more spring-like and more sunny and um I was telling my friend, I'm like, I feel like it's been the longest effing winter of my life. And I was kind of making a joke and I was like, yeah, curse that groundhog because this winter has been horrible in terms of like the actual feeling of like being cold and like the gloominess, at
Yeah.
least where I've been.
I definitely have like seasonal affective disorder. My mood and sunlight are very much correlated, and so if I don't have like adequate sun, it, yeah, it's hard to like feel hopeful and excited and like invigorated and all of this. But now I am feeling that way because the sun's back. So
So exciting. Okay. I my good news story isn't like it's good to me, it's cool, but I was telling Colin that I was like, I don't know if mine is even a news story, but I just really want to talk about it. So, Suzanne Collins released a new book on March 18th. I have it right here. Sunrise on the Reaping. I'm this far in. Sorry to the people who hate using the little book cover as a bookmark, but I do that all the time. And I just want to say I'm a huge Suzanne Collins fan, so I think this is an amazing news thing, and it ties perfectly into our podcast because she writes things when she feels the need to like comment on things because I always thought to myself like she could make so much money by just like writing games over and over again because it really is different and interesting and like fans like beg for her to keep writing stories. But I really do think she only comments on things or she only writes things when she has something real to say. And this one is inspired a lot by like misinformation and disinformation and PR within the media. And I read an article analyzing the book and even the idea of the book. And the headline said something like Suzanne Collins is describing the issue with media literacy, or she said something like Suzanne Collins is saving media literacy through this book because like young kids are reading this or younger people, and it is just so blatant. Like you don't even have to analyze it that hard because it is right there, the message for you. And I think I'm like halfway through, and I think it is so amazing. Like I just keep every few sentences, even if as a Hunger Games fan, like there's a lot of references to other stuff, but the commentary on it in 2025 and in this realm that we're in right now is just so perfect. She does it so well.
that's awesome. We definitely need good art right now. I think like anytime we find ourselves in these sorts of times where, there is more of a swing to the right and it's more conservative, like, for what it's worth, I think like art is it has an opportunity there, I think. So that's really awesome to hear.
Yeah, so everyone go read it. Not sponsored. I love Suzanne Collins, so um I guess we could get into our topics now.
Yeah, sure. Our first one is a little bit of a downer, but we have some other more fun stuff toward the end of this episode. But the first, we're going to be talking about the just like a update on the immigration situation because a lot happened last week. Particularly, Trump is now using this law from 1798. I believe it's called the Alien Exclusion Act, and Essentially, it allows for deportations of enemy aliens in times of invasion or like incursion. I think it's only been used a couple of times in history, if that. And obviously, again, it's a very old law. People are pointing that out. People are also pointing out, like, well, the Constitution is an old law and we still have that. So, make of that what you will. But now this law is being used to deport people under the assumption that, well, what's happening at the border is qualifying as an invasion, and so therefore, under the authority of this law, he can send them back. But he's not just sending them back. There was a lot of Venezuelans who are allegedly gang members of this gang called like I think it's called Tren de Aragua or something like this, and they're being sent not back to Venezuela, but they're being sent to a prison in El Salvador, which is like, a little bit questionable. Like, what are the conditions of said prison? And there was a kind of kerfuffle with the Trump administration and this judge last week,
Hmm.
where I guess they were sending three planes of people, and when the third plane was like about to take off, the judge had given like a verbal ruling, but he hadn't yet put it into writing. And so then when he found out that the third plane had left, he like ordered that it be turned around. But then by the time that this order like was received by the administration, the plane had landed in El Salvador, and El Salvador's president was like tweeting about it, like kind of rubbing it in the judge's face. So just very bizarre foreign policy stuff happening. But essentially, so that this was like a disagreement between the judicial and the executive, and so it's still kind of up in the air, but Trump then later called for this judge to be impeached, and then a Supreme Court judge came out and said like that's not what you do. Like you can't just call for a judge to be impeached because you disagree with how he ruled. So the judge who is in a fight with Trump is Judge Boasberg. He's a DC judge. And I forget which SCOTUS judge was the one who kind of admonished Trump. I think it was Chief Justice Roberts.
Yeah, that I remember listening to breakdowns and reading headlines and articles about this, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so much that is happening. I believe that we texted about it. First of all, definitely constitutional issues there. I think that Trump also calling for this impeachment is like you could look at this and see this breakdown of democratic norms and view it as like, oh my gosh, he is so I don't know. I don't know if attack is such a strong word, but I'm like, it seems like an attack on the judiciary and like an exertion of his power that he doesn't have when you're supposed to obviously be balanced within those three branches. Um, yeah, all kinds of legal challenges and other concerns. Like, I know that I was listening to an analysis from NPR specifically, and they were talking about how this gives leeway into wrongful deportations as well, like U.S. citizens being mistaken for and arrested under being suspicious of being undocumented, or even like um people who are coming in for a little bit of their tour. I know their tourism visas are, there's some issues there. And if people are coming into the US, they shouldn't, even just for vacation, like they shouldn't have to be afraid of the possible chance of being arrested. And I think that is also an issue as well, which causes a lot of um, people to not want to come here. And like the US is really based off of tourism as well within our economy. So I think it touches a lot of different issues and fallouts.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just the broad, like, overarching tension between judicial and executive is just amping up each week. I mean, we've covered that pretty extensively on this show with like
Yeah.
even our kind of ironic segment about Amy Coney Barrett rolling her eyes and what does that say about the state of things? And we probably read into it a little too much, but I enjoyed it. And it did speak to this the situation where as Doge is doing its thing and as the administration has really hit the ground running, they've run up against the rule of law and it's yet to be seen how that's gonna play out. And so exactly what you're saying. And um I know also there was a Texas Congressman, Brandon Gill, who like introduced impeachment charges or something against Judge Boasberg kind of by direction of not direction of Trump, but like because he knew that that's what Trump would want, sort of thing, you know? And
Hmm.
so there you have now the legislative and the executive like ganging up against the judicial. And it's kind of a weird situation because the judicial can't really defend itself. Do you know what I mean? Like they famously have no way of enforcing their rulings, and so it's just yeah, I mean, sort of the thing that's held the judicial up is like their respect for the rule of law, and if that is disintegrated or even eroded intentionally, then it puts us in a bad place.
Yeah, and I remember last week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, whenever we did the ACB segment, you were saying how you prefer when the courts are more on the conservative side, and I think I agree with that. Like there needs to be that balance, and they have a foundation for a reason, and I think that sticking to that rule of law is such an essential pillar of democracy. Like I remember I took a capstone class. I feel like I've mentioned this capstone class so much, but it was a republic if you can keep it, and so many people ended up writing theirs about the rule of law and the importance of the courts and um what they stand for and how sharpening that and sticking to the rule of law and honoring it is a way to keep the republic in check and keep and save it basically because we all know there's some commentary around about how how our democracy is falling apart.
Yeah, I mean that definitely seems the consensus, and I wish that there was a more obvious like off ramp for this, as opposed to just like it getting more and more tense and dot dot dot. Like we don't know.
Yeah,
It's sort of unprecedented territory, and that's what the Daily said about it. I listened to their podcast about this whole immigration thing, and they very much left it open-ended too. Their episode, they're like, we don't really know what does this mean, what is going to happen, and yeah, I'm on the edge of my seat over here. So
I think that that's just so much of what's been happening recently. It's
it's a
a
lot.
lot of question marks and a lot of ellipses, right? Like, I think that a lot of topics we've been covering, and even the media, like, it's not just us not doing our research. It genuinely is just like, I guess we'll just have to see how this rolls out, or I guess we'll just have to see what happens next. Like, I think that we keep ending topics like that sometimes, but it's just so true. Like, there's just this vagueness of what is going to happen next? What will come of this? What is the future of the US, a democracy? What is it going to look like in 2028, much less in a week, you know?
Yeah. So one thing you had brought up was people being arrested slash deported just based off of like suspicion of their immigration status. I've definitely seen that in headlines, like people getting arrested in cities because like they look like they're Hispanic or something, and then that is then like there's no real like rationale behind them getting arrested. It's just like it seems like there's pretty sweeping and broad powers that ICE has been given to just arrest people and then check their immigration status or like then do the, you know, the follow-up work on their status. And so there seems to be that seems an issue to me for obvious
Huge
reasons.
issue. Yeah.
Um, I know that that's been in the headlines, and then also there was like a really terrible case about a girl who was receiving brain cancer treatment. I think it was in Texas, and her family was like on the way to an appointment, and they got like pulled over, and I think the whole family got deported because yeah, I think it was like a situation where it was like maybe some of the kids had legal status and the parents didn't, so it was like if you want to stay together, you all gotta go type of thing. And I feel like we've been seeing that a lot, just this like indiscriminate mass deportation policy. So what do you think of all of that?
I'm definitely not a fan of it. Like that story you just brought up about the brain cancer, like that is really sad to me. Like, oh my gosh, how horrible to be a part of the family, like choose to either stay together or not. And I'm sure that you can't even really leave your kids alone, like especially if they're minors. Um, yeah, I was trying to do some research about like what powers ICE has, I guess, to be able to look at somebody or make a sweeping judgment like you just referenced and enact their powers, but I think that it's vague for a reason again. Like there's
Such a
power
theme.
in what'd you say?
That's such a theme, vague for a reason.
Yes, vague for a reason. Maybe that's our episode title.
Yeah.
It's almost like there's this power in ambiguity and vagueness, right? Like because it's not set in stone and because there isn't like it's more like it should be a period, but instead it's an ellipses. Do you know what I'm saying? Like there's you're able to get away with things when there's so many room for loopholes and caveats to be like, oh, well, but that wasn't technically this. Like, if you read between the lines and then, you know what I'm saying? Like, they
Right.
almost are weaponizing the fact that people aren't able to read between the lines when it comes to these vague um, powers and EOs and stuff like that.
Yeah, totally. And like the whole thing with the law from 1798, illegal enemy alien act, the whole thing with that is like it's predicated on the assumption that it's happening during a time of invasion. Well, invasion is a very, again, vague word. Like you could argue that we're being invaded from our southern border, but that's not like a fact. That's a subjective interpretation of what's going on. And unless they have like real intelligence saying that the governments of Central and South America are like coordinating to send people north up to the US and they're doing it for like this reason and that reason. And we have like a paper trail and we have like good authority and intelligence community that this is happening. Then I hesitate to think you could call it a true invasion because
Hmm.
um, an invasion to me would be that the government of a foreign country is the one behind the mass influx or the mass like incursion, you could say.
Yeah, and the lack of yeah, again, like the lack of definition leaves leeway for these things. And I think that's what people are just so afraid of, like the unknown and not knowing if you're gonna get arrested based off of maybe how you look or if you're just visiting on tourism. Like that to me is just such a crazy aspect of that. Like seeing these things in the headlines and then as an outside viewer now being scared that that could include you, you know?
Definitely. And I think just having like they don't even have to do anything super overt, but if they can induce that fear in people for really like, just for that reason alone that you mentioned, then it serves a purpose as well, which is that people they feel more controlled and are more likely to like stay in a box and not resist. And again, we talked about Mahmoud Khalil last week and how I personally see that whole situation as they kind of picked him out as like if we arrest and deport him, it sends a message to everyone else about like what you can and can't do.
Right.
So yeah, I don't
And
have anything else to say about immigration other than I had one stat, which is I think in the first month of Trump's presidency, they deported like 11,000 immigrants, was what
wow.
I could find. So that was actually more or less on par with what Biden's administration was doing
Hmm.
in February of 24. But I just wanted to add that number in for perspective. So,
Okay. Well, I don't have anything else to say about this as well. Do you want to move on to the DOE?
yeah, sure.
Okay. So DOE ended by executive order. We saw this all, we all saw this coming, but um what again, like based off of our theme of like what's gonna happen next is like what does this really mean? For me, I've kind of been talking to a lot of other like Gen Zers and stuff like that and being like, have you seen any changes? Have you seen how this is going to affect people? And was just telling Colin a story about how my friend is like touring schools for her little sister, and they are doing things like emphasizing the need for private loans, right? Because you can't really like rely on FAFSA anymore, which is something that if you were a college student like touring schools, they would literally never say privatize college loans. And what concerns me about that is there's not really a federal standard for these loan companies. Like I just think that it seems bad to me to get rid of a federal standard for loans and federal loans because these private companies can now like take advantage of people who need their college paid for. Like, I don't know. That's one aspect of it. There's definitely more aspects of things. Like there are some colleges under federal investigation for DEI, and funnily enough, like UNLV, not funny, but UNLV is one of them. And I'm a Vegas girl, so I know that Vegas is super diverse. Like it it's silly to me to think and like kind of ironic. Like I was texting some of my Vegas friends about it and we were like, what did they think? Like Nevada itself is like 50% white. So by standard, like the state is a pretty diverse state and specifically Vegas, the city, is the most probably diverse part. Second place being Reno, most likely. And it just, if you have a group of diverse people, like it only makes sense that their college is diverse as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. And this is all part of like the DEI rollback that we've been seeing and how that is now being really hyper focused on higher education. I mean, we saw like Columbia had like $400 million of federal funding kind of held over its head this past couple of weeks, and it was under those same sorts of like, you know, pretenses. And it looks like Colombia is going to acquiesce to the Trump administration so that it can, get that funding from them. But I've heard that, and then also I think it was UPenn, I want to say, was
Hmm.
facing similar issues with the federal government because of Leah Thomas had been a swimmer for UPenn, and so that was kind of being used as like reason to hold money over their head unless they like acquiesce to Trump. So it, you know, lot going on there.
Yeah, yeah. Another thing about that is the loans thing as well. Like with the FAFSA being gone, like I was doing research and I was like, where is our money gonna go? But apparently they can just choose another federal agency to like put the money towards, which I think is kind of unfair, and I don't know the framework of how they're going to choose like what federal agency all this money is going towards. That'd be great if they just canceled all our loans. Like I would be so thrilled by that, but I doubt that they would do that and risk losing all that money.
Yeah, so he Trump shut down the Department of Education through executive order on Thursday, but it still needs congressional approval to actually fully close. So just wanted to mention that real quick. But we are now at 5 minutes left, which means we can pick up on the other side with education maybe, but it's now time for our Bury the Lead segment. I think that I'm going
Okay.
first this week,
Yeah,
and
you gotta go first.
basically, we're going to be delivering our hottest takes in our last 5 minutes of our first Zoom call. So, this week, my Bury the Lead topic is gay marriage and how I'm convinced that it's probably not going to last the whole Trump administration. I'm just trying to give people a warning up front because, we saw with Roe v. Wade, it got overturned, even though Biden was president at the time. But, we have a conservative Supreme Court right now. Just seems like the direction that things are moving in. I think that the case that gay marriage was decided on with Obergefell versus Hodges in 2015 was decided based on the 14th Amendment and this idea of like equal equal rights under the law of the 14th Amendment. And this decision made it so that a marriage in one state has to be recognized as a marriage in another state. It was kind of done to level the playing field because different states had different policies. But opponents of that decision say that the Constitution, nowhere does it specify about gay marriage. Therefore, under the 10th Amendment, which says that the states have the ability to make laws on non-specified issues, that would include gay marriage. And so conservatives will interpret the law to say that the states should be the ones making law on gay marriage. So I'm just concerned. We saw what happened with Roe v. Wade, and I think that people should kind of be expecting Obergefell versus Hodges to also be overturned. We're seeing, like, again, just based off of the way that it was decided, it was a very narrow margin when the Supreme Court decided it. It was like 5-4. And we've added more conservative justices since then. Also, I wanted to bring up the cultural shift happening in Hungary right now because they're sort of a front or forerunner to what is happening in the US. They have a strongman populist leader, Viktor Orban. They just banned Pride events in Hungary. So yeah, if that's any like cultural weather vane of what could happen in the US, people should expect it might not last. Gay marriage might not last through Trump's term.
Oh God. Okay. Now it's my turn. We can comment on our things after this, but I'm going to talk about today how abortion, I think, is the number one issue that we should be focusing on. I know it's a very hot topic issue, and that honestly, a lot of centrists and obviously left-leaning people agree with it. And I know that it's brought up a lot, but I really, really do think for how much it's brought up, I don't even think it's brought up enough. It kind of ties into Colin's topic a little bit as well, because I think that the overturning of Roe v. Wade and the government's step in on abortion has a lot to do with privacy. And I think that is the reason why it is such a big deal. Like taking out the aspect about women and how these things are probably happening illegally and how the this is an overstep on body regulation and stuff like that. Like it is also a look into what they can do to privacy, and Colin kind of touched on it a little bit, but like Clarence Thomas wanting to revisit cases like Griswold versus Connecticut, which has to do with contraception, and then Oberfield versus Hodge, which is same-sex marriage, which you just talked about. And I think that it just needs to be looked at from this broader perspective of privacy, and that's kind of the only way we're going to get something back when it comes to abortion rights, right? Like, I think that unfortunately people hate women too much to like only look at it from a women's perspective, but it affects everyone. Like it affects everyone's broader threats to these privacy rights. And obviously Roe v. Wade was not the right thing to go about, but I'm trying to figure out something that I agree with in a framework that isn't Roe v. Wade that can't be overturned as easily. And I will probably get back to you guys on that, but I do think I need to emphasize the importance of how getting rid of Roe v. Wade and these abortion rights was only just a wedge into the door of getting of the federal government or the judicial government, the government being able to revisit cases to do with privacy.
Yeah. And like equal rights, when equal rights comes up against states' rights, that's kind of what we both are talking about with our topics there, I
Yeah, I
think.
think it tied in really well together then. Okay, guys, we're back. I favorite segment. I Chef's Kiss. Like I really like that segment so much because it's just so fun to have 2.5 minutes to talk as fast as you can. And like the timer is so stressful near the end. And the first time I did the bury the lead, I went first, and like this time we switched. And I didn't realize that like, well, I knew this, but at the last minute on Zoom, it says less than a minute left, and you don't see how much time you have left. So you kind of just like have to guess how long, but it feels like the longest minute in the world. I won't lie. Like,
It's like a shot clock counting down, and your segment, you didn't have like the seconds left. You just had a broad
yeah.
minute remaining. So yeah, it's tough, but I think it's a good challenge, and I really liked like we didn't plan at all for our topics to tie together, but the way that it did kind of interweave was really interesting. So yeah, it'd be fun if like each week we could find a way to interweave our topics
Oh
at
my
the
gosh, yeah,
end.
what if we have like themes? Where like this week's theme on Bury the Lead is whatever, and then we have to like find two things that we like each feel passionately, or each of us finds the thing that we feel passionately within that topic, and then we could go off of each other. Because I really did like how ours connected.
It could be fun too if we like picked issues where we maybe disagree. Because
Oh
I don't know,
yeah.
we agree a lot on like majority of things. And I actually like through doing this podcast with you, I feel like I've discovered how much we really like are aligned in so many ways. Like we haven't really come across a topic or issue yet that I'm like, I disagree with Abby. But if we like we sought that out for the sake of debate and like the bury the lead segment, that could be fun.
What's funny is I was actually just reflecting with one of my friends about like our podcast, and I was saying like I don't disagree with Colin often, and I can't even think of a scenario where we do, but like sometimes I'll be looking at something from one perspective, like being mine, and then you'll start talking, and then I'm like, wait, I actually agree with that, and I didn't even realize I agreed with it. And I think that's what like most of the time is happening, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm just being like convinced by you or if I genuinely just like believe it from the get-go. But okay, wait, no, I think I believe it and you just like put it into words that makes me be like, oh wait, yeah, that is something I agree with, and I just never had the words for it.
Well, I think we're both like engaging obviously in good faith and like obviously our friendship goes way back further than this podcast. And so like that sets it up really easily where it really is just like we're having a conversation and like coming to new understandings about things. And like I'm also shifted my perspective on a lot. I used to just think like everything should just be like cut and slashed and like consequences be damned. But I've really had to reel it in and be like, looking at it from a perspective of how are people being impacted by these cuts and the ways that the cuts happen are really important. And you always bring in the constitutional law aspect because I know you took that course and it really like left this impact and it so I feel like I'm vicariously like picking up on those things as well. It's been really helpful.
Yeah, and I think that's like obvi we both come from comm, but we also have different other backgrounds. Like I always like when you bring in like psychology of people or like stuff like that and sprinkle little things into that within our news analysis. And I just think it works so well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. So I want to get into our first topic back. We have the JFK
JFK.
files. Okay, so Trump, we talked about this in like episode 3 of our pod, and he signed this executive order saying that they need to release all the documents for JFK assassination and MLK assassination. And so they finally did on Wednesday, I think. And so I was going through it as soon as it like dropped, and I was texting Abby like, "Oh, the JFK files just dropped." It was kind of similar to with the Epstein files, where like it seemed like it was really overhyped and promised, and then as of yet, nothing has really emerged from the set of documents. It was like, I don't know, almost 2,000 documents I think I saw, and um, similarly, like no one has really come to any conclusions. It seems like all indications are still pointing toward Lee Harvey Oswald being the lone gunman. But yeah, have you heard anything about it so far, reported?
No, yeah, I didn't see anything contradicting Lee Harvey Oswald, and I thought it was interesting the timing of this drop. I know that we touched a little bit about that and the skeptical, like conspiracy-esque side of myself is like, why now? And these files, again, like I like the comparison that you've made to the Epstein ones because it is a bit underwhelming. Like, I'm like, what information are we looking for right now? And I guess they're still being analyzed, so there's like not really any groundbreaking information passing through yet. But it'll be interesting to see if there is more information coming out and like people like Candace Owens like doing her little series and stuff. Like she loves a good conspiracy. Like
I'll
I'm
tell you what she thinks because I listened to her commentary on
Oh, you
Friday.
did?
Oh yeah,
I didn't get the chance to, so give me a
it's
little rundown.
interesting. It's very
It's interesting is the word
Candace
for Candace
Owens.
Owens.
Basically, she thinks that LBJ was working with Mossad, which is like Israel's CIA, and she says that our CIA and Mossad are like one and the same, and they always have been. And she said that I feel a little like I feel a little kooky just saying this, like telling you what she said. but that's her opinion that LBJ was working with Mossad because JFK was opposed to AIPAC, which is like American Israel something pack, I don't know. And apparently JFK wanted AIPAC to register under FARA, which is like this Foreign Agent Registration Act, where anytime you're doing lobbying on behalf of a foreign government, you have to register. JFK wanted them to register as under FARA as being like part of Israel's lobbying, and they didn't want to do that because that would maybe constrain them financially or something. So Candace Owens says, not me saying this, that that was why they coordinated with LBJ to take him out.
Right. Interesting.
I feel like
Does
I really like
she?
haven't given it that much credence just to like repeat it here, but I did say that I personally also feel that LBJ is somehow wrapped up in all of it. I just think he's the worst president. I actually think he's the worst president the US has ever
Yeah.
had, but
Fun fact, Colin has a list of all the presidents from best to worst. Um, yeah, and I actually every time it gets brought up, LBJ, like I think about you because you said that you think he's the worst president that there's ever been.
since I'm dunking on LBJ, I just have to say the Vietnam War and the Great Society, which I think like systemically created intergenerational poverty for minority communities. That's why I hate LBJ. I think he's the reason my grandpa and all my great uncles had to go to Vietnam, and he's the reason why there's these cycles of poverty, and it's just, I don't know. I think it's horrible. I guess he did do some good stuff, like he signed the Civil Rights Act. So maybe that should maybe bump him up a couple of spots.
Okay, okay. Do you have Trump on your list,
Um, I
or was
think
this just
I think I
past
made this
presidents?
list when he was in his first term, so his ranking has probably changed. I don't know if it balls, but
Okay. Well, yeah, I don't think I'll be listening to Candace Owens' episode. Like she had I feel like she was having this little rebrand moment for a bit. Like people were like, "Oh my God, like she's so cool" type thing, but honestly that was because she was doing the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni thing, which obviously we talked about so much. And she always just manages to go back to who she is at her core.
yeah, unfortunately, I kind of have to agree with that. Although I did also see her numbers are like outperforming Ben Shapiro right now, which is interesting because she's about a year. Her like anniversary of being fired was like last week, and her numbers are doing better than a lot of the Daily Wire hosts, and also the Daily Wire CEO like is stepping aside and doing other projects, but it's kind of like with a wink and a nod, there's something might be going on there. But yeah, so I've been following her, and I hope I don't bring her up too much. I'm gonna try to bring her up less, but she's just always doing something kind of interesting, even though I agree with you that she's oftentimes wrong. But the way that she's wrong, I still find to be fascinating.
I admire how she's unabashedly herself. I'll say that. Like I in starting our own podcast and stuff like that, like I get really um in my own head when it comes to the way that other people perceive me, and that's something I'm trying to work on. And Candace Owens has none of that. Like that is something that I will give her. Like she will say things and not give a single F like what anyone thinks about it. Like she'll say some crazy shit and like 100% stand by it. And that sentiment is something that I think I need to do, like stand by everything I say because I do believe it. So it's like why would I want to let the perceptions of others infiltrate that when it is things that I stand by.
Yeah, I think some amount of being in one's own head is productive though. Like, I mean, obviously I think we're pretty like tempered in our analysis and our approach. And I would suggest maybe she learn from us a little bit and be a little more tempered in that way.
Okay.
But, you know,
Um, anyways, is there anything else you want to bring up about JFK's?
kind of. So actually I went and I saw Jackie and JFK's gravesite yesterday. It was just kind of this strange little field trip I took to Arlington Cemetery. And I wanted to go after you and I had been talking about the Kennedys, and we both read Maureen Callahan's book, and I thought that Jackie emerged from that book as sort of the most independent and sort of interesting figure from the family. So I honestly, like, I was mostly going to see Jackie's gravesite and not so much JFK, but it was really beautiful the way it was set up. And I know Maureen Callahan talks about how it was kind of set up according to Jackie's desire and like the way that she wanted to be remembered and her husband to be remembered. So, you got like the eternal flame going, and that's kind of interesting, but just the location of it too. It's sort of like at the base of this sloping hill where I think it's Robert E. Lee's old residence is at the top, and they converted the whole grounds into Arlington Cemetery. Their graves are like right on this central line of latitude that runs all the way across DC. So it's like right across from the Lincoln Memorial, the Washington Monument, and then Congress in the distance. So like just the aesthetic of it was really powerful. And I felt like the spirit of Jackie was present in the meticulous planning of it and the beauty of it. I felt her presence more than like JFK himself. But it was great to go for the reasons I mentioned, and then also with this recent re interest in JFK's assassination.
And Colin was able to send me photos of it. I'm sure we'll put it
Oh
in
yeah, I'll
here
edit
or in
those.
a reel or
Yeah.
something like that. But yeah, I agree with you based off those photos. I hadn't ever looked up their graves before, so honestly, um, I think I wanted to after reading though, after reading Ask Not because of the description of what Jackie wanted for their graves. But yeah, it really is pretty. And you went on a really nice day. Like, I really liked the sunlight within the photos that you sent me. So I think that added to its general ambiance.
Yeah. And like right beside each of JFK and Jackie, they had buried their like infant children who died in birth and or shortly after. And so that was kind of also powerful because if you read Ask Not, it goes into some detail about I think one of the children Jackie had to give birth to while JFK was like away on a trip, and he didn't come back for several days to like comfort her and be with her. And so for her to like be buried right next to their young children, and it just was like taking that all in and reflecting on what we'd read about her and the struggles within that marriage. Like JFK was not a great guy. So in some ways it makes me wonder like why did she go through all this length to protect his memory and to have him be remembered as like the Camelot president and all this. But anyway, I think she succeeded in the end.
Oh, she totally succeeded. Um, yeah, Jackie has her caveats too, I'll say, but I did like the arc of her, I guess, quote, character, her person that Maureen Callahan gave. And yeah, no one is 100% perfect, but I enjoyed that there was some silver lining near the end of the book because it really is hard-hitting in terms of what these Kennedy men had gotten away with in regard to the women. So a lot of them didn't get any sort of redemption, which um
A lot of
was
them
pretty
just
sad near
died,
the end.
frankly,
Yeah.
in pretty
Yeah.
horrific ways. So yeah, totally recommend that book still for
I know.
everyone.
I feel like this is like our third podcast episode talking about the book, but yeah, recommend. Anyways, um,
The very last thing I have to say about the JFK files is that it's something that you've mentioned before, where anytime Trump does something really big, it makes you wonder like what else is happening that we're not paying attention to. Because, he likes to like distract and have everyone's attention go over here, so they're not paying attention to this over here. So that's what the JFK files feels like to me after all said and done. It feels like a big distraction. The press has been like combing through. The way that the press works is like as soon as these files drop, I know that every newsroom, major newsroom across the country is like combing through them, having someone like systematically like fact check and document and reaching out to experts, and it must have been insanity. But in that happening, they're not able to delegate their resources to like other ongoing news topics and investigative stories. And so it pulls their attention away from like real hard-hitting news. And so that makes me very curious, like what are we not talking about right now?
Yeah, especially within this week's news cycle. I mean, I remember literally on like Monday or Tuesday, I think Colin and I were texting and we were like, it is the beginning of the week. How is there been so many headlines? And yeah, it just reads as a distraction, these being dropped this specific week. And
On Monday, woke up to the headline that Trump had declared Biden's pardons void because of the auto pen that he used to sign them.
yeah,
And I was like, what in the hell is happening now? Like,
that is a pure satire headline. Like, come on now. Like, that is not. I think you had texted me something like it's giving alternate reality, and it's so true.
I was like, reality diverged and we went left and the rest of the universe went right. I don't know, something like a glitch in the matrix that this is where we're at.
Oh.
But again, that's another like legal question that he's raising now of like, was Biden competent to sign documents that now we're gonna have to somehow come up with the answer for, and there's no precedent really for that. So yeah,
Ellipsis. I guess we'll just see. Do you want to move on to the next topic?
yeah. Let's
Talking about Tesla. Okay. So for everyone who has been keeping up with it, Tesla has kind of had a shift within its demographic, mostly because of Elon Musk, which we could go into so long about him, but I will not, for the sake of time and because I don't want to. Um, but you guys know how I feel about Elon Musk. And yeah, so his demographic, because of him, has kind of shifted from more left, or it used to be a lot of left-leaning supporters, but now it's because of his association with the right-leaningness and being on the right and like being under Trump and stuff, that is kind of taken back, and that shift has been more him having these right-leaning supporters versus left. However, I'm like the Tesla stock is plummeting as well, and like using my cognitive thinking skills, I'm thinking to myself like, oh, it's probably because his supporters are no longer his supporters because they disagree with the way that he's handling things under Trump and with the power that he does have. There have been some Teslas being destroyed. One of them is in was happened in Vegas. I have an article pulled up right. Let me try to find it. Oh yeah, FBI investigates blazes at Las Vegas Tesla showroom as potential terrorism. This is from The Guardian. And yeah, I remember this. I think this happened, yeah, it happened on Tuesday where I saw these photos circulating on I follow a bunch of like Las Vegas influencer accounts. So I remember seeing it there first, and there's like these fires and Teslas, and um I don't know if destroying the Teslas in protest, it definitely brings attention to it, but I don't know if that is the best way to go about things. I tend to not think any type of destruction is the best way to go about things. I'm a fan in protesting, I'm more of a fan of peaceful protesting, but I know that people use these acts to gain attention like this. Um, have you seen any photos of them? Like, what did you think when you kind of saw maybe the destruction or the Tesla
yeah.
backlash?
Well, one of my coworkers like asked me with the stock price falling, like, do you think the board of Tesla is gonna try to remove Elon Musk? And I was like, maybe, but also I don't really think so because this is great like brand awareness for them. Like
Hmm.
the ways that these like businesses operate, like having the name recognition of Elon Musk at the top, I don't he might be damaging their brand in one sense, but in another sense, he's like free PR all day long every day. So for Tesla to be like caught up in the Musk political fight right now, I don't think they're really losing sleep over it too much. It is interesting though what you observed about like he used to be kind of a darling of the left with the electric vehicle thing, and now he's on the right. And so the way that the culture has had to like kind of re configure itself around him is really interesting. Like I know a lot of like wealthier people who own Teslas who are now talking about like, well, now I have to get rid of my Tesla or like something like this. And I- that's just such a strange situation. Again, it's giving like alternate reality. Like, how did we go from the left championing EVs and being pro Tesla to now completely against? It's like the party swap happened literally because of one person, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm like, are we really giving Elon Musk this much power? Like, he obviously has so much money and, status, but the fact that he could change the culture like this when it comes to Tesla is actually scarily impressive, is what I'll say. Um, I also know that like there's other options for EVs. I don't think that getting rid of your Tesla will really do anything. I don't know. I struggle to say like getting rid of something you already, especially if you've already like paid everything off and like you own this car, like getting rid of it seems like it's only gonna harm you personally. Like it seems like you're kind of like
Seems like signaling.
failing.
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
like performative. It's like I am so virtuous that like I'll give up my car to show how much I don't like Elon. And that seems like you're saying, like very petty to me.
Like I get it. I get the in theory why like I don't like to use things too when people I don't like are the producers of it or whatever, but I it kind of reminds me of a little bit of the separating the art from the artist thing, like not calling Elon some great artist. But do you know
Separate
what
the
I'm
car from the
saying?
CEO.
Do you know what I'm saying though? Like
Oh yeah, totally.
do you stop and with that that's like directly each stream is giving the artist some money, so it's like if I'm thinking about like a car that's already been paid off and I don't know how much, I mean with the updates and stuff, I guess if you're paying for the upgrades you're still giving him money, but I don't think if you have a Tesla you're inherently like supporting Elon Musk in that way and like his values and stuff. And maybe I will point out, maybe I'm being a little biased because my parents have a Tesla. Like our family, we have three cars, and one of them is a Tesla. And I've driven it a few times. I'm not a fan of driving a Tesla that much. It's, maybe it's just because I'm not used to it, but it kind of like freaks me out. Like the auto drive feature, I've never ever tried it on my own because I'm too scared to. Um, but I don't think because like there's a Tesla in my driveway makes that people are going to look at our driveway and be like, oh, those people that live there support this man who does blank, blank, and blank. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, especially like as we said 10 seconds ago, it would have been the complete opposite read on seeing a Tesla in someone's driveway. And like what I think we're arriving at this conclusion of like just don't judge people based off of the music they listen to, the car they buy, the da da da. Like just people just need to take a chill and like stop judging other people for every single like little decision that they make.
I think it goes hand in hand with like that cancel culture. And me and a good friend of mine just had a text conversation about how the people that we dislike the most are the people that think they have a moral high ground, like a moral high ground of superiority. And I 100% agree with her when she texted me this. She was like, I hate these people who make me feel like I have these horrible morals or that their morals are right. And I think that also goes hand in hand with like cancel culture. Like people are wanting to demonize others for certain things that honestly when like in this term, like if we use Tesla for example, like that just doesn't seem that deep to me when there's just so many other issues and there's so much nuance to things. And I think that's what we always talk about too. We're like, oh, it's not black and white. Like I feel like we are hammering this idea in over and over again with each episode that we do is that we want to encourage people to not look at things in the binary.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say like I have no judgment against like people who want to have a Tesla. My view is like everyone's doing the best that they can with what they have, and if someone can afford a Tesla, like good on them. And the only gripe that I have about EVs is I think the Cybertruck is hideous. And I think if someone chooses to buy a Cybertruck, then I will judge them just off of like the aesthetic of it because I think that it's obnoxious. But all the other vehicles seem really cool, and I would have one if I could afford it. But you know, and I also think the other thing I don't understand about EVs is um, they run, so they are charged, right? Like that's the whole point of an EV. You plug it in and it gets battery instead of gas. But what is generating the electricity that charges the car? That's what I've never understood. I'm like, it must be a power plant somewhere, right? Like a coal plant or like
Um, this is such a Demily question actually because she worked with EVs like throughout her senior year. So I will get back to you on this. I bet she'll come with me with this like really long paragraph that is so informative. She's so smart. Just for people who don't know, reference to my ex-college roommate, really good friend and engineer, Demily. She's probably listening and she's like, I can't believe she just called me her ex-college roommate. Anyways, we'll move on. We'll move on from that.
Well, like I think it would be great if we could have like nuclear plants and then the nuclear plants are like charging electric vehicles and everyone had EVs and like wouldn't that just be amazing? And like the
Yeah.
roads are harnessing the kinetic energy to store more energy for
Yeah.
like our other electricity needs. Like, yeah, sign me up. That sounds great.
I
I
think nuclear energy is the future. So,
yeah.
that's a
Another
whole other topic.
another agreement we didn't know we had that we
I
just
had no idea you thought that too. Like that is something that I like think I picked up mostly from my dad and a lot from I guess again Demily is like I genuinely think that the future is nuclear energy. Like well, we could talk about it again later, but
we'll get to. But yeah, so to wrap up the Tesla thing, I just saw like Tim Walz was really stoking the anger against Tesla, saying like, "Oh, I have my on my phone, I'm tracking the Tesla app because every time it goes down, like it makes me happy or something." Like
oh,
Tim
Tim
Walz,
Walz said that. I didn't even see
yeah,
that.
he was taking some heat for that because he later said that he was joking, but he was
I mean,
taking
it
some
sounds
heat
like a joke.
because people are like, the people who are going to lose out if Tesla goes under are the employees who rely on the income of whatever job they have. So, like, Elon wouldn't really take the hit. It would be the everyday employee.
Right.
But yeah.
If it is a joke, I'll say one more thing. If it is a joke, and it probably was, I mean, if he said it was a joke, what is funny or interesting to me is seeing the reaction from left politics versus right politics when it comes to like cracking a joke. You know what I'm saying? Like, if this was a company that was more left aligned and like under somebody else and say like Trump made that joke, everyone would be like, "Oh my God, you guys, like it's just a joke, like blah blah blah, blah. Like he wasn't serious." Um, but I just wanted to add that little aspect in.
So, like, what I would read into Tim Walz's comment is maybe like, I don't know, he has some amount of animosity toward Tesla and now being associated with the right, and that might even like steer into the being anti-business if it's opposed to his political values. Like that would be the far-reaching read into what he said, but I also agree like if people are just cracking jokes, then like we should take them at their word
Yes.
and
Yeah.
not be like, I don't know.
Let's leave the jokes up to the comedians.
Yeah.
Next topics? Are we on our bonus topics now?
Yeah, we're reaching the end of this episode. So let's start off with Southwest because you felt very strongly about that.
Yeah, okay, so Southwest is taking away their free bag policy starting in 2026, I believe. And guys, let me tell you, I am a Southwest loyalist. I've accrued so many points. Like I have the Southwest um credit card and all this stuff. Like I literally just bought a flight on Southwest And this is so, so sad to me and depressing. Like their one thing is this. Like this is their thing that makes them special. This is their thing that sets them apart from other people or other airlines. Um, corporations aren't people. And I don't know why they would do this. I think they're gonna lose so much business, like so much. I'm already because my family is a Southwest family, and we were literally like, I guess we're gonna have to be Delta people now. Like, my dad was literally like, we are like gonna have to start flying a new airline now. And another thing I think is funny is that the like competitive the some competing airlines dropped some promotional things in spite or in the wake of this news. So, for example, Frontier. I have it pulled up right here. Frontier announced that they're throwing in a free checked bag for flights departing May 28th through August 18th as a promotional thing. And they announced that like right after Southwest announced their thing. And I just thought it was so funny and really good marketing.
Yeah, that's great marketing, but it's bad marketing on Southwest part. I mean, I'm in the same exact boat. I've really mostly flown Southwest my whole life, and this is very disappointing. But how much is like a bag gonna cost now according to this new thing? Do you know?
I haven't looked, I literally was like, I guess I'm just not flying Southwest anymore. Like, Um,
The
but like
betrayal.
bags are a lot of money for no reason. Like it literally
Yeah.
takes your flight from say like 60 bucks to 100 something sometimes, especially if you're doing a checked bag. But I mean those are always money. So
Yeah, the one funny headline I saw come out of it was like someone saying they always say there's like no free lunch in society, but this was the last remaining like freebie that everyone had, and yeah. So now that's gone.
now that that's gone, anyways, do you want to take on the next bonus topic?
Sure, yeah, we have like 5 minutes left, but we can talk about update on Russia and Ukraine. I listened to a podcast with Steve Witkoff and Tucker Carlson. Steve Witkoff being like he's doing some negotiating on behalf of the US, Ukraine, with Russia. And they seem like the phone call with Trump last week went really well with Putin, and both are kind of in agreement about like that this war is es or de-escalating, like coming to a close. But the specific terms are gonna be decided soon. Like, is Russia gonna get the territory that they were seeking when they invaded or not? There seems to be a lot of respect, they were kind of saying, between Putin and Trump. There was a headline that Putin had actually gone to pray for Trump when he heard that he had been shot. So that was an interesting headline to come out of that particular interview with Tucker Carlson. And I guess Ukraine has agreed and Russia has agreed to not target one another's like energy infrastructure. So they're still fighting and there's still combat going on and like drone attacks, but seems like they're not going to be targeting like these sensitive infrastructure.
Stuff like this, I always think about like my foreign politics classes and I'm like the idea of like back channeling and like politicians talking to each other like behind closed doors is so interesting to me.
Yeah, and apparently like President Putin had had a portrait commissioned of Trump that he like sent to I don't know, semi-recently, and this is all part of like the negotiations that are happening. It's just it seems very like reminiscent of back when they used to like have monarchies and the kings would like engage one another
Interesting.
and the public wouldn't really like have a say. So we'll see what happens. I'm actually a little
Dot
bit
dot dot.
I'm a little bit hopeful though that we're coming to a close on that. Um, Do you want to finish our episode with the French government official calling for the return of the Statue of Liberty?
Oh yeah, I did see that. There were some I little funny anecdotes online, like on my algorithm being like, yeah, like we don't deserve that anymore, like give it back, stuff like that. And I don't think it's actually that serious. Like I can't imagine that we're actually gonna give that back or that they're actually gonna follow through and be like, no, like we want it, you know? I think it was more just like just for say. Like it seems like a bark not bite type thing, you know? Like I don't think it's actually like them demanding for it back.
Right. I mean, it kind of falls with what I was just saying about Russia, like the way that diplomacy is done. It's it's very bizarre. I mean, we kind of have this notion that like, oh, these government officials really know what they're doing when they're negotiating strategic diplomatic conversations, but like it's really just people. People are just people, even the people in government. And at the end of the day, it's all just kind of absurd if you think about it.
Yeah, silly, silly. Lots of jokes that came out of it, but I can't imagine New York without it. I don't think New York will be without it. So I think it was just them being ticked because of how the US has been treating Europe recently. Anyways, that's all I have to say.
Yeah, I'd like to see them come get the Statue of Liberty if they want it back.
Okay. See you guys
Cool.
next week or
Yeah.
not. Ready?
Da, da,
Washed
da.
up. Washed
Washed
up
up
out.
out.